afternoon and welcome to Virtual Day Trip to Wine Country. I'm Sam Kimball from New York Wine Events, and we're really glad to have you guys here today. We have an awesome virtual tasting lined up. I'm coming to you from the North Fork of Long Island. There you see practically a live shot taken in the vineyard only a little while ago. We're looking at the vines at the beautiful Lenz Winery and Vineyards out on the east end of Long Island, North Fork. 50 plus wineries out here, beautiful agricultural region, maritime climate, perfect for growing grapes. And we're excited to visit Lenz today. We go to Lenz in our regular day trips to wine country frequently during the season. So we're excited about returning virtually and sharing that experience with our larger audience online. The Lenz Winery is one of the historic and legacy wineries on the North Fork. It tracks back to the very beginning of winemaking out in the North Fork region on Long Island. It's one of the 2 or 3 oldest wineries in the region, going back to the late 70s, early 80s. And they make beautiful, beautiful wines. I mean, I'm always amazed and impressed and loving the tastings that I do there. Many of those wines are French inspired. And to learn all about the Lenz Winery, you can visit at lenzwine.com. That's L-E-N-Z wine.com. I should mention that Lenz has a great Mother's Day package and offer this week. So listen up when we do the tasting in a little bit. They ship to most states, and it's a great deal and a wonderful package. As always, if you have questions during the session, please go in the Q&A or the chat and put them in, and we'll tackle them. And we're also excited because we recently had Lenz at one of our grand tasting events, the New York City Winter Wine and Food Festival in New York back in early March. And so we're fans of the vineyard, fans of the wines. It's my pleasure and my great privilege today to host the winemaker, Thomas Spotteck from Lenz,
all right, guys,
and the director of sales, Jerol Bailey.
Hey,
welcome, guys. It's great having you on the show today.
thanks for having us today.
Yeah, we're excited to be talking with you.
It's so awesome, and we get to see these beautiful shots of Jerol's got the winery entrance in the background there, and Thomas is practically in the production facility as we speak. So I want to ask you to kind of kick things off. How did Lenz get started? What was the original beginnings of the Lenz Winery?
So Lenz was founded in 1978 by Peter and Patricia Lenz. And they took an old potato farm that was owned by the Krupskis, which still predominantly owns a lot of property out east where we are here. Across the street, you'll still find a potato farm or farm in general by the Krupskis. But they purchased this property in 1978 and planted our first varietals, which included Gewürztraminer, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Chardonnay. We had some Pinot Noir that dates back to the original plantings of 1978 as well. They managed the property for about 10 years, and in 1988 it was sold to Peter and Deborah Carroll, who are the current owners and have owned and operated it since 1988.
Wow, that's amazing. And was it the second or the third after Louisa Hargraves and her husband? Was it the second or the third vineyard?
Yeah, so we're the second eldest winery on the North Fork. We like to say that we're the longest running winery with the same name. So yeah, Hargrave was planted in 1973, and then the property was purchased by the Borghese family in 1999, which they changed the name from Hargrave to Castello de Borghese. So since the beginning, 42 years now, we've operated as the Lenz Winery.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny because obviously we spend a lot of time going to the wineries on the North Fork and enjoying the tremendous region, the different selections. The thing you can tell when you go to Lenz, this is just my perspective, is the wines are so finely crafted. You can feel that maturity. It's been around longer. You guys have been at it. You do it better than almost anybody out there. And that's something that shines through, at least for our guests and myself when we're visiting the winery. When you started, was there a specific philosophy and approach in mind, certain grape varietals, certain styles of winemaking?
Back when we originally started, so our winemaker, previous to Thomas Spotteck, was Eric Fry, and he did a lot of studies in France, in the Loire Valley. And one grape varietal that really grows well on Long Island is Merlot. And I think that as of more recent past history, we've had kind of a bad reputation, not us particularly, but Merlot itself. And so we really want to make that fine crafted, dry style wines. We want to emphasize the fruit forward style wines without tasting, the practice that makes those wines. And it's something that we've been able to do very well for the last 42 years and continue to do. So thank you. We're really proud of the wines that we put out.
Now, would you say that the all the way up to present day, that Loire Valley style and influence and tradition is still very present in the process?
Thomas, I think you could answer that question.
Yeah, I mean, there's influence from everything, but we're here to make New York style wines. It's kind of my goal.
Got it. Awesome. What are the most common grape varietals? You mentioned Merlot, Jerol, but what are the grape varietals that you focus on? Do you lean on some more than others? Are there some that are sort of, some of the more well-known ones that you don't do? How do you approach that given the climate and the terroir?
Well, so, we work with what we have planted. So we have 67 acres planted in total, which is the maximum we could have. We have 70 acres total. The tasting house in the picture behind me, our courtyard, those make up the acres that aren't planted. We focus a lot on Merlot, Chardonnay. We have, is probably the most white wine varietal that we have planted. And with Chardonnay, it's nice because we make 3 different styles. We could do a stainless steel Chardonnay, we have our gold label Chardonnay and our estate Chardonnay that are both new French oak inspired and our old vines. We're going to be tasting some wines today that we're starting to add to our portfolio thanks to the help of Thomas. Thomas joined us in 2011 as an intern harvest with Eric. In 2012, he moved out into the vineyard to help Sam McCullough. Which is one of the wines that we're going to be tasting is our Sauvignon Blanc. So we never had a Sauvignon Blanc until it was planted in 2012, and our first release wasn't until 2015. So, we do have those traditional old school planted varietals, but we're starting to see a lot more of the new trendier varietals like Malbec, Cabernet Franc, and Sauvignon Blanc hit our tasting room.
That's awesome. And we're going to taste a Cabernet Franc in a little bit, in a few minutes here. Is Lenz an estate winery?
Yes, we are. So if you noticed on most of our labels, I'm going to hold up a bottle of our Sauvignon Blanc here for the camera. Whoops, we're dealing with the screens behind us. But all of our wines do say estate selection, which means that we are an estate winery. So on years that we may want to sell off some of our fruit, we don't have the privilege of buying any fruit that we're not in control of in one of our vineyards. Otherwise, we'd lose the estate label. So we take a lot of pride that we manage our vines from, from spring to fall when they're ready to harvest, and we have complete control over those vineyards, and all of our wines come specifically from our vineyard only.
Right. So that's something that I know our audience is very interested in. They love the idea that it's literally from vine to wine, that the products, the selections are made from grapes grown on the property, as opposed to brought in. And I think, that's become more and more over time, an area of sensitivity and high interest from the audience
Yeah, I would have to say that being in a state vineyard, we have the opportunity to spend a lot of time with our vines and get to know where there's, you know, differences and what, you know, something's weaker, which kind of works into our first wine and kind of where it came from.
And now on the property, are there, we were on our broadcast yesterday with a winery up in the Finger Lakes, and they talked about different lots and blocks within the vines in the vineyard. And I'm curious, do you guys talk about that? Are there areas within your property where, given the location, given the way the sunlight hits, they're different than others?
I've worked very closely with Sam McCullough for the last couple of years, our vineyard manager, on isolating certain sections of our vineyards that are not as, we've separated the Sauvignon Blanc, for instance, from 1 acre into 3 different sections, and we pick it in three harvests. The Firefly, the first wine we're gonna have today, it started out as a Cabernet Sauvignon base, which we had isolated a section of our vineyard out that wasn't ripening to the extent that we wanted for a red wine. It was more acidic, not as sweet. So we ended up selecting the certain sections out for rosé, and now we grow those sections out for rosé instead.
Right. Interesting. No, I mean, people find that fascinating too, that there can be certain sections within the same property that have different results, and the fruit has a characteristic that is distinct from other parts.
Sam has been working the same vines for over 30 years now. He's knows each vine almost personally, so it's good to have him on the team too.
That's very cool. So tell me, people love wineries, they love visiting wineries, and it's always really interesting to meet the people who work there and run them. What do you guys respectively do day to day? What is your day to day like? And I'm sure it's different. Jerol's is different than Thomas's, but what do you guys do on a day to day basis? The winery, what happens, now, or what happens, in the winter? What's that process?
For me, we kind of work in seasons. We have the harvest season, which is obviously where it all starts. But like right now, the picture behind you is, we're at bud break. So that's kind of the beginning of the 2020 vintage now. But for me in the cellar, we're bottling last year's wines and the 2018 wines, getting ready to empty the cellar so that we can accept by the fall the 2020 vintage.
Got it. And I'm putting up a picture in my background here of, I think this is harvest last year.
Sure is.
September or October, somewhere in there. And that's like, I know for you guys, you're pulling long hours for days on days and weeks on weeks.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that. I mean, you're still running, Jerol still has to run the tasting room, and there's lots of people coming in and out.
Yeah, everyone.
It's all happening in parallel.
Busiest tourist seasons. And it's also the busiest season for us in the production. So we definitely have to butt heads and try to make space and work together on accomplishing that. You have all the cars as we're trying to have tractors come down, but I think we make it work pretty well.
It's a ballet. I've seen it.
Very much so. And
you guys do a great job with it. So, hey, take us on a quick tour. Jerol, do you have any backgrounds or shots? I've got a couple here, but let's give people a sense of what the winery is like, and then let's get to tasting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I pulled a couple photos here. Moving into harvest, I thought an interesting photo that we could share here, and actually Thomas would be able to explain this better than I, but I believe that what is in the barrel behind me is our 2017 Cabernet Franc, which is a very unique process that Thomas had taken this wine through to fermentation. So I thought it was a good photo to share since we're going to be tasting this wine. Thomas, what exactly is going on in the barrel behind me?
Yeah, so with a lot of our red wines, I've kind of gone almost backwards in time because a lot of people are working towards mechanization. I'm going more towards hands-on process. So you'll see the table behind me in the picture is a process I call berry selection, where we go individual berry selection, removing fruit that isn't up to our par, up to our quality that we need. And then we put them into new French oak barrels or reasonably new French oak barrels. We just see the picture of which we buy new and then take apart and put the berries into the barrels and ferment them by hand, push everything down by hand at 2 or 3 times a day, and ferment it in those barrels like that.
So that fruit never sees a tank?
Well, the oak is the tank.
The oak is the tank, but it never sees a stainless steel tank.
For some of the wines, for instance, this Cabernet Franc that we're going to have today never went to a stainless steel tank. It never went through a pump. Never went into the press. It's all done by hand.
That is artisanal in the technical definition of the word, by hand. That's awesome. Jerol, what else should we see? I put a picture of the barrels behind me. We've got some great shots of sort of the front of the winery. And
yeah, I like the image behind you at the moment. Interesting times that we're facing right now where we're doing all these virtual tastings. Lenz is open 7 days a week. We've maintained the same hours, 10 to 5, but unfortunately we're just doing curbside pickup. So we're looking forward to getting back to somewhat of a normal look. We're just now getting into our high season. As Thomas mentioned earlier, everything starts out in the vineyard in the spring, and it progressively, as the grapes grow, we get busier and busier. So as the seasons change, that's when we're amping up for all of our customers to come and visit. We have live music in the courtyards on Saturday and Sunday. So with that, our summer months are very popular into fall. When the most action's happening at the winery, we have the most attraction. And that's when we're really, everything starting from May is just getting us ready for October. It's the practice until the big show. But we also like to introduce different wines with different seasons. So we know at the beginning of each season or year what wines we want to introduce and at what time. So as we start to get into the spring, we're looking at releasing all of those rosés. They're so great to share with Mother's Day. And then we're getting into those crisp, refreshing, lighter white wines like the Sauvignon Blanc. In the summertime, for the people that want red wine, we have lighter style reds. We have our 2016 Cabernet Sauvignon, which is really juicy. It doesn't see a lot of oak, or the oak that it does see, it's a lot of neutral or older oak. And then as we get into the fall, we're going to showcase much more of those fuller body, those oak aged white wines that we have, those fuller bodied red wines that we have. Interesting enough, the Cabernet Sauvignon, the Cabernet Franc that we're going to try today, it's a brand new release for us. So I don't want to jump the gun, but we're really excited. It was Thomas's little pet project. So it was just labeled last week and introduced for sale this week to our wine club members. So we're excited to talk about that with you.
I have a bottle right here, and it's open. It's been aerating a little bit, and it's ready to go in a moment. I do have one question, so let's get to tasting, but we have a question from somebody who was watching our broadcast the other day with the Finger Lakes producer. And this is actually a great question. It is, so when you think about regions and the east end of Long Island, the Long Island's AVA, American Viticultural Association area, how are the wines different? How are they, distinct from, for example, the Finger Lakes? We're in the same state, but
same state, very, very, very different regions. If you think about it, from where we're located, we're almost 100, 110, 120 miles offshore of the main mainlands. We're basically in the middle of the ocean. We have the Gulf Stream in the ocean that pulls all the warm water out of the south in the fall, which gives us kind of warmer falls A huge maritime climate on the North Fork. You're never more than like 3/4 of a mile from the nearest body of water, which it just regulates our temperatures through the falls. In the summer, it kind of keeps us cooler. In the falls, keeps us warmer. In the winters, we don't have too much frost damage because you very rarely see days below 0 on the North Fork.
So very, very different than, I mean, they have that cool climate. They have lots of frost and stuff up in the Finger Lakes. And that, for example, certain grapes do particularly well up there, like Riesling. Awesome. Well, we'll keep answering questions as they come. Shall we jump into the tasting? And I think we're starting out with the rosé for Mother's Day, yeah?
Yeah, we're going to begin our tasting with our just released 2019 Firefly Rosé. I saved the opening of the bottle so I could get the crack on the camera for you.
I like it. Here's mine.
Yeah, that's a good sound.
That's a great sound.
So for people that are familiar with Lenz and have been loyal fans over the years, we always had our wines with cork. And in 2015, 2016, we introduced a new bottling line. After the one that we had for over 30 years decided to give out on us, it was time to buy, a new line. We went with a new technology that we believe in the science. So a lot of our wines are being switched over currently from the cork into the corkscrew capsule. And, really fresh, crisp, refreshing wines. The first wine, our Firefly Rosé, is a blend. I'm going to let Thomas here talk about, he introduced this wine for the very first varietal in 2016. And then we brought it back in 18 and 19. It's one of our more popular wines, especially this time of year.
And I'm going to revisit Rosé 101 before Thomas speaks and just say, for the audience, remember Rosé is made from red wine grapes. And there's this short period of time where the skins from the red wine grapes, which give red wine its color, stay on the grapes while in the process, and then they get pulled off. So, and that's why it's pink, not white or red.
Yeah, I mean, so back to where this wine kind of came from. We spent a lot of time in the vineyards, and like I said before, we isolated a vineyard block of our Cab Sauv that was falling kind of behind on ripening. But it was retaining the acids a little bit more. So in 2016, we isolated that section and started using that fruit for rosé. But it started out as a 100% Cab Sauv, and it's really kind of grown and taking on a life of its own almost since then. It's the only kind of now blended wine that we use. It's the only one, if you look at the label, I guess it's on the screen, that's a non-varietal labeled wine in our portfolio. In 2018, I think the blend was like I added 80% Malbec Saignée, which really boosted the fruit. And in 2019, I started playing with this wine a lot. So we started with that base wine of the Cab Sauv. I started to add Saignée of Malbec. We picked a Gewürztraminer that I skin fermented almost like an orange wine to really boost the aromatics, and then I blended it in with the rosés.
Wow.
It's kind of become my fun wine. I play with it.
So this is how many grapes make up the blend in this rosé?
Yeah, so it's Cab Sauv is the base, and then we have Merlot, Cab Franc, Malbec, and Gewürztraminer.
Wow. So it's 5.
Correct. Yeah, I started playing with stuff. I've started to barrel ferment. Probably about 25% of this wine is actually barrel fermented, which gives it a richness on the palate. So it's been kind of my fun project every year.
See, everybody, if you go to school for winemaking and you get a degree in viticulture, you can do what Thomas does, which is play around with different types of grape juice and make a beautiful rosé like this Firefly. All right, so give us a tasting. I'm going to take a taste. Give us the tasting notes on this one.
First thing you get on the nose is almost like an orange blossom.
Oh, it's spectacular. Spectacular rosé.
Orange blossom. I get tropical fruits, pink guava, followed by kind of like a strawberry.
it's got a lot of structure for, you know, a wine. Rosé often can be great, but it's very, very light. This has some real character in the combination of flavors.
That's going to come from that that barrel fermented fraction of the wine, gives it that richness, that mouthfeel, which was kind of the target.
And what's the perfect food? Tell you what, here's the question. What's the perfect food during quarantine when we're all getting takeout and pickup to go with the Firefly Rosé?
You know, that's an interesting question because I say, you know, drink what you like, eat what you like. Recently, we just had our wine club subscribers shipments go out in May. And with this particular wine, we actually featured a pulled chicken and barbecue slider pairing, and it actually worked really well. You know, rosé is something that's a great start to a meal. You could have it with a salad and goat cheese, but don't be afraid to, you know, have it as your main course and show it off with a nice chicken dish. Does really well. I do get a lot of the orange zest off this particular wine too. You know, our Firefly Rosé is a $20 bottle retail. We make about 600 cases annually. We just released this wine, so it's just now starting to get into production. We have it right now in our tasting room, online available as well.
$20 a bottle. And I know we have a Mother's Day package deal, but are there any incentives or promo codes you want to share with the group, just if they're buying a bottle of this, a bottle of that, kind of picking, mixing, and matching?
Yeah, so for Mother's Day, we featured a 3-bottle pack. We actually have 2 rosés. In addition to the Firefly, we have a Pinot Noir rosé, which is really that Provence style. It showcases slightly different flavor profile from the Firefly, more of those white cherries, really soft on the finish. But you could pick any 3 wines. We'll send out a Mother's Day gift for you with a note. And our code for MOM 2020 will include free shipping and the complimentary note. We also have open local wine night coming up, which is really great to support us. You could purchase wine from us. And we have an online free shipping promotion going on, open local wine, and that'll get you free shipping on all orders that come in through the web.
That's awesome. I just put Mom 2020 in the chat for everybody, so we don't lose sight of it. So should we move on to the? Elizabeth says, "I'm so jealous. The Firefly Rosé is my favorite." Well, Elizabeth, use Mom 2020 and order some. Go to lenzwine.com.
Yep.
All right, so should we move on? What's our next one? We're doing a Sauvignon Blanc?
Sauv Blanc.
Also a screw top.
It is.
Beautiful, beautiful label.
Yeah, so our label, as our t-shirts, we, Patricia Olstadt, actually, she designs a lot of labels. She currently does all of the chalkboards that we have in the tasting room. And I had asked her to come up with a new shirt design right around the time that Thomas started with us in 2011, 2012. And we loved the design of the shirt so much. She just took a picture of our tasting room and she hand drew it and we scanned it in. And once those shirts, you know, kind of went out of stock and we changed the design and the logo of our shirts, we wanted to bring back the design of the tasting room. So we incorporated it on all of our estate selection wines and added them to the label. We actually just went through a label design not too long ago when Thomas joined us as winemaker. We kind of revamped our labels a little bit and introduced this new look about 2 years ago. And we're really happy with the color choices that we went and the label. So thanks for noticing that. We put a lot of time into that. The Sauvignon Blanc is, like you said, a 2018 vintage. It's our estate selection. It's 100% Sauvignon Blanc. And I think I mentioned earlier, we planted this in 2012. And Thomas actually was working in the vineyards at the time with Sam.
Yeah, I was working in the vineyards with Sam at that time, and I've kind of grown up almost with these vines because the day we planted them, I had a dirt bike and I was riding we marked out every 5 feet and then every 7 feet, and I rode the dirt bike back and forth, and then gridded out the property and came back and planted those vines on every grid, intersection. And that was the beginning of the Sauv Blanc, and I've kind of grown up with them since. So it's kind of been a fun thing to do here.
That's awesome. Is that an accepted practice in the measuring of planting distances? The dirt bike.
Whatever works, right? Whatever works. So
excellent. All right, well, walk us through this one, tasting notes, and then we'll pair a food with it.
Yeah. So this has been one of the more fun wines that I really enjoy making, because I'm a firm believer that Sauvignon Blanc on Long Island is it's one of the most distinctive white varietals that Long Island has. I've never had like a green or grassy Sauvignon Blanc on Long Island, and I'm also I'm just a believer that of how it shows. It pairs with all of the local foods that we have. Like I said before about the maritime climate, our bays are full of clams and scallops and oysters. And it just pairs so well with, shuck some fresh oysters or some clams. You get that beautiful, luscious fruit and the acidity really matches with those.
And I want to kind of highlight that for a second. I agree with Jerol. Drink what you like, eat what you like, but there are times where a particular selection and a particular food, the combination is so electric that you can't not highlight it.
This wine with some fresh chucked oysters is my key on that one.
Pretty darn good. All right, I'm pouring my taste here.
Perfect. When we made this, like I said, we have it's about 1.5 acres of Sauvignon Blanc planted, and in 2015 we had picked it as one vineyard block, but we began to isolate in 2016 and 2017 different sections of the vineyard, and again how they ripen differently. And I broke it into 6 sections, which we picked in 2018 at 3 different times. So I thought Sam, our vineyard manager, was kind of going to be a little bit more against it than he was, but he really went with it. And it's a lot of extra work separating those blocks out and getting people to, figure out what we're trying to do. But we picked it in 3 sections. The earliest picking, you pick a little bit early before it's fully ripe. You get this beautiful acidity to it. And then as it ripens, it starts to build this richness and this tropical fruit. On this one in particular, we barrel fermented the middle pick, which gives it also that richness. But then when you blend it back, you get that acidity that follows, which is, again, why it pairs so well with shellfish.
This is a fantastic balance of the acidity and the citrus, but with a smooth finish. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who are not Sauvignon Blanc fans or know it that well, that's not an easy thing to do. So that's great. What would you say are the specific tasting notes?
For me, do you ever have a star fruit? It's like a really bright acidic apple. I get this the star fruit character followed by almost like a key lime pie custard, and then it's also a little peachy and melon tones on it that are kind of a little bit more subtle.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was trying to place that, especially the bouquet, mm-hmm. On the nose, and it really does have a distinctive, like the star fruit is a good one.
Excellent. A little bit of like a gooseberry, which is interesting. I mean, a lot of people might not be familiar with what those are. I happened to have them on my wedding cake in 2012. So when I first, had this aroma hit, I was like, wow, it's really reminiscent of a special time for me. I do get a little pear, probably like mid-palate, but a lot of that, like Thomas was saying, lime and even lemon zest, it's really sharp and clean and quite refreshing.
Yeah, refreshing, but it's also got some body and some kind of smoothness that is not always present in Sauv Blanc. So, at least for me, that was a special thing. Excellent. All right, so shall we move on? I love to talk about, and anybody who's seen me talk about wine or host a tour or these broadcasts knows that I talk about my sort of the underdog grape, Cabernet Franc, the unofficial red wine grape of the state of New York. And so I'm really excited to taste this one. And Thomas, tell us a little bit about the origins and the process for this Cab Franc we're about to taste.
Yeah, we have always grown Cabernet Franc at Lenz since the beginning of time, basically. But we've always used it as a blending component because previous people didn't like the green characteristics. It works better as a spice to add to the Cab Sauv and other things. In 2017, we got to discussing, I actually had a 2013 at the time, Gabby's Cab Franc from Roanoke Vineyards. And it blew me away at the time. I said, this is what Cabernet Franc is supposed to taste like. And Sam McCullough and I got together and we discussed it and we went over and over. So we again started at the vineyard, working with the fruit. Sam, you really have to, Cabernet Franc to get even ripening is the key. So, exposing the fruit to the sun early is very important. And then crop thinning to get full ripeness to less fruits. We've really thinned the crop down. And then get that even ripening. When it came to the cellar, to my side, the picture behind me is, again, the process that I call individual berry selection, and you're removing berries that are too small, underripe color. They just don't fit what you're looking for as a berry for the most ideal grapes that we want to put into our wine. We also don't want to put stems into the wine, which bring kind of that green stemmy character, which I don't like. So it's just a long, slowing down the process. And this is the kind of wine that started it. Putting it into new French oak, open top fermenters, doing everything by hand, being as gentle as possible throughout the entire process to give it this smooth, I call it like a sexiness to the wine. It's just smooth and rich and delicate at the same time.
You heard it here first, folks. This is the sexy wine, Cab Franc. Now look at this color. I mean, it's got that deep red. And that's obviously the skins, which stay on for a while before you.
This one was, I believe it was somewhere between 25 and 28 days. But also using the barrels, you get this earlier tannin, build the tannin structure, and the anthocyanins seem to kind of retain themselves a little bit more when you have that microoxidation and the earlier tannin structure building out.
It's a beautiful bouquet. That the nose on this is gorgeous. What would you call that flavor, that sensation I'm getting off of the nose? I'm having trouble.
I always get like a raspberry cherry, kind of with a crushed gravel, and then my fiance used the word boysenberry. Mm-hmm. And when she said that, I remembered being 12 years old at IHOP with the boysenberry little containers, and I haven't had it, I believe, since, but it brought back, and every time I taste it now, boysenberries.
Yeah, I get a lot of vanilla bean on the aroma as well. So
thank you, Jerol. I was gonna say vanilla, but I've got two guests here who are experts in wine, and I didn't want to sound like a dummy, but I was getting a gorgeous vanilla with the fruit.
Yeah, no, it's like berry patch meets vanilla. It's this is an awesome aroma. Like you said earlier, the color is really deep and intense. I was actually explaining this wine to someone earlier. I'm glad Thomas mentioned Gabby's Cab Franc, because this is reminiscent a little bit of some of the past vintages that I had, and it's really great as a community out here. We really support each other. We really understand the varietals that are growing out here, and this wine is absolutely delicious. We just released this, like I said, for our wine club subscribers. So we only made just under 75 cases of this particular wine. So we don't have a lot in stock. Thomas is focusing on doing more of these small wines that we're going to package and not produce a lot of. So this hit our tasting room this week at $50 a bottle, but it's really, you know, full bodied, but it still has this juiciness. I picture myself, you know, down the road enjoying a nice lamb with this particular, or even Long Island duck, I think would bring out a lot of those cherry raspberry flavors that this wine is holding.
I also, call me crazy, I'm thinking venison with this.
Something gamey. I totally agree with you on that one. Something gamey.
Something that's got a little bit of that more exotic flavor palette and range. But yeah, definitely duck. And I think lamb would be spectacular. So again, Jerol, easiest way to buy these wines.
You could call us in the tasting room. You could visit us at lenzwine.com. The particular Cab Franc you will not see placed anywhere else outside of the winery. But, you know,
it's not going to be in retail or any place where it's distributed.
Yeah, it's going to be to wine club only. It's really easy. You could still join our wine club. We break it down into 4 quarterly shipments, and you get a percentage off of the wine depending on what level club you want to join. But lenzwine.com will give you all the information on how to join our wine club, as well as you can shop there and pick up any of our wines. We actually, I think we have 11 different varietals planted, and the last time I counted, if I remember right, we have 16 different labels that are hitting market, anywhere from sparkling wine, Chardonnays, to we have a dessert wine from our 2010 Chardonnay, late harvest Chardonnay.
And what's the number to call if somebody wants to call ahead, order, and then pick up curbside?
631-734-6010. We're there. We're answering your calls, packing up the order, contactless pickup. We'll deliver it right to the trunk of your car. You just have to pull up to our front door, let us know who you are, and we'll bring your order out.
That's great. And the wine club is also a great option. Again, one more thing on the Mother's Day offer. Just run that down one more time so everybody has an idea, because it's this Saturday, Sunday.
This Sunday. So there's still time to get orders out at the door, especially local New York State. So pick any 3 bottles. So we suggested 3 for you, 2 rosés and our Sauvignon Blanc, but you could pick any 3 bottles if your mom is more of a red wine drinker. As long as you add 3 wines to your cart and use the MOM 2020 code, you'll get free shipping. We'll get those orders out. We're processing them up. And if it's local delivery, we'll deliver all the way up through Saturday.
That's great. MOM 2020, everybody.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, this has been great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We have one question. Liz has raised her hand. Bear with me one sec here. Liz, put your question in, if you would, in the chat or the Q&A. Let's see. She gets there.
I see a question from Liz. Do you ship to other states besides New York? Yes, we ship to more states than we do not ship to. Unfortunately, I could say there's a few states, Utah, New Hampshire, we absolutely do not ship to those states, but we work with different vendors, UPS, local couriers, and FedEx. So we've incorporated licensing to ship to most states. And Hawaii is one of the states we can't ship to, but chances are we can get you some wine.
How about Georgia?
Georgia is a wine that we could ship to. We use FedEx for our licensing through there.
Okay, great, because we have somebody on the broadcast right now who's in Atlanta.
Great. I've been to Atlanta. I used to live in Valdosta, which no one knows where that is, and that's okay. But I have family down in Georgia, and they do enjoy a wine shipment here and there.
Well, guys, this has been a treat having you both today. Thank you so much for your time. It's great to visit the winery virtually, hear about the process, the wines, these new selections. By the way, guys, everybody watching, these are all new offerings from the winery, so very exciting. And we will see you, everyone, again soon. We've got broadcasts tomorrow, Thursday, the 7th, and Friday, the 8th. Tomorrow is Bialy, Robert Bialy Vineyards in Napa, and Friday we're going to Sonoma County. So tune in. Thank you for watching, and we'll see everybody soon. Stay safe.
Thanks for having us.
Everyone.
Thanks for being here.